should you implement a carb cycling approach for yourself? It's an advanced technique that involves significantly lower carbohydrates than you normally would, and pre-planned days where you would have substantially more carbohydrates than you normally would. Hey, what's up everyone? It's Christine with Gauge Girl Training, an online meal planning and coaching service. I'm a food scientist and chemical engineer by training, and today we're going to talk about carb cycling for fat loss. So let's get started. So in the last few videos I've been doing on insulin resistance, a lot of questions that have been coming up in the comments section has been related to carb cycling, what it is, how it works, and if that will help with improving one's insulin sensitivity. And the quick answer to that is yes. So carb cycling is more of an advanced approach when it comes to fat loss. However, it is quite an effective one if you truly understand it and know how to properly implement it. So the problem with carbohydrates is that it's a double-edged sword, and there are benefits to carbohydrates and there are benefits to consuming them in your diet. However, there are some drawbacks. And because of those two things, which I'm going to explain to you guys here in this video, there is a way that you could maximize your net utilization of carbohydrates, and that is through a process called carb cycling. So the benefits of carbs, they are anabolic. They will help boost insulin, which is also a muscle building hormone. Insulin allows your muscle cells to open up. It allows carbohydrates to be shuttled into the muscle in the form of glycogen, allows muscles to grow. It allows amino acids to be shuttled into the cells, and that's a good thing. However, insulin is also a fat storing hormone where if you have too much carbohydrates, that excess glucose in your bloodstream can be stored as body fat. So here's the thing. How do you effectively get the muscle gain benefit of carbohydrates without the fat gain drawbacks as a result of having excess insulin? One way to do that is through a process called carb cycling. So carb cycling is a process that allows the muscle building benefits of consuming carbohydrates without the drawbacks of gaining body fat. This enables an overall improved utilization of carbohydrates, and it's going to help maximize your fat loss while retaining as much muscle as possible. So that's the overall goal. And it's an advanced technique that involves pre-planned days where you're going to have significantly lower carbohydrates than you normally would, and pre-planned days where you would have substantially more carbohydrates than you normally would. So I'm going to talk first about 3 different categories of carb loading. So you can have a no carb day. I would define a no carb day as less than 30 grams of carbohydrates per day. I would consider a low carb day to be at the level of approximately 0.5 grams of carbohydrates per pound of body mass, and I would consider a high carb day to be 2 to 2.5 grams of carbohydrates per pound of body mass. The way I implement carb cycling is I would go through a series of low to no carb days. It could be anywhere from 24 hours all the way up to 72 hours. Now, during the low/no carb days, the purpose is to deplete your body of carbohydrates and to improve your insulin sensitivity because you are no longer shuttling glucose into the bloodstream. You're forcing your body to rely on body fat as a source for fuel during this time. Now, that's great because it's going to help get your fat loss going. Now, during this time, it can be quite challenging if you have never been on a low carb or no carb day at first, because your energy levels will feel lower at first. However, you will boost your carbohydrates back up after a depletion stage, and on a high carb day, you will end up taking 2 to 2.5 grams of carbohydrates per pound body weight on that day, which will enable the glucose that you do take in to be preferentially shuttled into the muscle cells which have been depleted completely, and it's going to help retain your muscle definition, and it's a very, very effective approach. So should you implement a carb cycling approach for yourself? It's going to depend. It's going to depend on a lot of things. This method of going between low carb days to support fat loss and high carb days to support muscle growth is effective. Here are some of the pros. The pros are that it is an extremely advanced technique and it does impact your body composition. It's a good thing. It will maximize your energy demands. There is a positive psychological response to your higher carb days because you're going to get to eat substantially more carbohydrates than you normally would, and that can be a fun thing and a really nice thing. And some people are actually more motivated by the fact that they are losing a little bit of water weight due to the water binding ability of carbohydrates. Even though it's just water weight, some people just get excited by that and it tends to be positive in their minds. But one reason why you are losing a little bit of weight, while some of it is coming from fat loss, some of it is coming from the water effect of carbs, because 1 gram of carbohydrates binds 2.7 grams of water. Now, the cons is that it could be complicated and it's not necessarily flexible. Now, it's flexible in the sense that if you're just tracking your macros and you can go about tracking your macros during those days, if you have your macro goals, that's perfectly fine. But it's a bit strict. It is a bit strict, and low carb days can suck. I'll be very honest. Low carb days can be quite challenging. And for some, it can promote an unhealthy relationship with food because it is such a powerful and effective technique, but it's almost a little bit to the point that it can force some people to have a negative view of food and not necessarily have an overall balanced, healthy lifestyle. And if you are prone to those tendencies, I don't suggest this approach for you, no matter how great the benefits you would get from it in your physique. If it's going to mess you up mentally, I don't encourage you to pursue any technique that would mess up your long-term relationship with food. This is effective for fitness competitors, models, people on photo shoot prep, or those who have plateaued on their current macros. So an example would be you would go on a low carb / no carb diet for approximately anywhere from 24 to 72 hours, and you would follow it up with a higher carb day after that. If this is something that you are interested in doing, I would recommend implementing this either through a consultation or through online coaching. There are some protocols you can find out there, and the thing is, some people have a need to use these advanced protocols just because fat loss is not linear. Sometimes people can plateau, and it is extremely effective under those circumstances. However, it's a bit harder, I'll be honest with you. I think it's a bit harder. That is my personal experience with it, is a bit harder, but the results are definitely worth it. So if you have any additional questions on carb cycling, if carb cycling is right for you, or if you wanted a carb cycling protocol designed for you, I would get a consultation to go about that, or online coaching. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.